Hi, my name's Ian and I want to welcome you to another 5-minute family devotion here at Engadine Heathcote Anglican Church. At 5-minute family devotions, we're looking through God's big story, and we're looking at the story of the Bible and how God is working on each and every page of the Bible to bring a relationship with Him once more. Now, before we start today, a quick shout out to Wyatt and Giselle, who are watching in all the way from Narrabri. They sent some photos through of their awesome ark that they made. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Well done, guys. Way to go. Keep on watching in. Why don't you send us a photo over the next couple of days and we'll put it up here and say g'day to you as we go through our 5-minute family devotions. Now, we've been filling in the gaps as we've been going through God's big story. What have we learnt so far? Well, God's people were in the land that God had promised Abraham, but they demanded a king. The people wanted a king after their own heart, but eventually God gave them a king after His heart. He gave them King David. David trusted God, and we learnt on the weekend that God made a big promise to David that God would make somebody in his family have a kingdom forever. And God was going to do all of that for David. Well, David must have been perfect. Well, actually not quite. David was a sinner just like the rest of us. And today we're going to learn a little bit more about that as we look at a story from 2 Samuel chapter 12. Now, David had everything that he wanted before him. He didn't even need to go out to battle like before. His armies went out to battle. And this one time, David stayed back at home in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and he walked around on the roof of his palace. When he did that, he saw a beautiful woman bathing. Her name was Bathsheba. She was married to a man named Uriah, and Uriah was a soldier in David's army, and he was battling out on the front lines. Now, David was a bit selfish, and he wanted Bathsheba as his own wife. Now, Bathsheba was unfortunately going to have a baby, and David was the father and not Uriah. Well, David felt like he needed to cover things up a bit. And so he hatched a plan. But wasn't David supposed to be God's king? Wasn't he supposed to follow God and lead everybody else to live lives that honoured God? Well, yes, he was, but he was sinful too. He sent word asking for Uriah to come back from battle. And when Uriah came back, well, unfortunately for David, he wouldn't go and sleep at home. He said, "All the other soldiers are still out there fighting. How could I go home to my wife while they're still out there fighting?" David was a bit frustrated. No matter what he would do, Uriah wouldn't go home. So David figured that there was only one more way that he could deal with this situation. He made Uriah go back fighting. He put him where the fighting was at its worst, and then he told everybody to withdraw so Uriah would be stuck there by himself. And that happened. And sadly, Uriah died. Well, back in Jerusalem, David quickly married Bathsheba. He thought he had covered up his sin, but God knew, and God wasn't happy. You see, David was God's king, but David wasn't perfect. He was still a sinner. For David, one sin turned into another sin. It turned into many sins as he tried to cover up what he had done. He didn't want people to find out what he had done, but lots of other different people got hurt. Well, David eventually confessed his sin to God. He ended up knowing that he couldn't cover it up and he couldn't hide his sin from God. He asked God to wipe away his sins and make him clean. And you know what is amazing? God forgave him. David was God's king, but David wasn't sinless. And just like everybody else, he needed to be forgiven. You know what? It makes me think of another king. It makes me think of God's eternal king, Jesus. Unlike everyone else, Jesus never sinned. He always lived trusting God in everything, and he didn't need to ask for forgiveness. But he came to bring forgiveness to everyone else. When Jesus died, he made David's prayer come true. He wiped away our sins and made us clean, as he took our sins upon himself. Jesus certainly is God's amazing forever King, because he is the King who brings forgiveness to everyone and friendship with God forever. Well, in a couple of seconds, a couple of questions are going to come up on the board. And as a family, I want to invite you to read, to think, and to pray. And pause the video as you do each one of those together as a family. And remember, keep on sending your photos in, and we'll say good day to you.